After his encounter with quantum madness, Sam thought he had faced the worst of what the universe had to throw at him. But he was wrong. Out of nowhere, a portal opens up and scared both Sam and the Sphinx. They were thinking, did the Eater of Worlds survive after all? But then they see it. It was the Anunnakian mummy. Sam and the Sphinx were still recovering from their last battle, but they were ready to take them on. However, this one was different. It was a good version of the Anunnaki. She had been tracking the Great Motark across dimensions. She started to tell them about it, but then the skies clouded over. This only meant one thing. The Great Motark was about to enter the fray. The Great Motark was a being of immense power and malevolence, a creature whose very presence twisted reality itself. His arrival was heralded by violent storms and earthquakes, as if the world itself was rebelling against his presence. Sam knew that he had to confront the Great Motark, even though he felt a chill run down his spine at the very thought of it. He gathered his allies, including the Sphinx, the Anunnakian mummy, and even a few brave warriors from Tartaria. Together they marched towards the source of the disturbance, prepared for battle. As they approached, they could feel the air growing thick with tension and dread. Finally, they reached the site of the disturbance. The ground was cracked and shattered, with molten rock bubbling up from deep beneath the surface. The sky was choked with black smoke and ash, and the very air tasted of sulfur. And in the midst of it all stood the Great Motark, a towering monstrosity of writhing tentacles and twisted flesh. His eyes glowed with a sickly green light, and his every movement sent ripples of dark energy coursing through the ground. Sam knew that he had to act quickly. He summoned all his strength and charged towards the Great Motark, sword at the ready. The battle was intense and brutal, with Sam and his allies struggling to keep up with the Great Motark's incredible power. His tentacles lashed out with deadly force, and his very presence seemed to warp reality itself. But Sam refused to give up. He fought with all his might, summoning the power of the universe itself to aid him. His sword glowed with a brilliant light, and his every movement was a blur of motion and energy. As Sam clashed with the Great Motark, he realized that brute force alone wouldn't be enough to defeat this malevolent being. The Great Motark's powers seemed to defy the laws of physics and reality. In desperation, Sam reached deep into his understanding of quantum madness, attempting to unravel the strange energies that surrounded the creature. With a burst of inspiration, Sam began to manipulate the quantum fabric of the universe itself. He disrupted the Great Motark's grip on reality, causing time to twist and turn in unpredictable ways. The very ground beneath them seemed to shift and warp, and the skies overhead were filled with strange, shifting colors. The Great Motark, who had been so confident in his power, began to falter. His tentacles flailed, and his form distorted as Sam's quantum manipulation took its toll. But the battle was far from over, for the Great Motark was not a being to be underestimated. In a final, desperate move, the Great Motark summoned a vortex of darkness that threatened to engulf Sam and his allies. The very fabric of reality seemed to tear, and the group of warriors found themselves at the edge of oblivion. It was a moment of uncertainty, where it seemed like all hope was lost. Sam and his allies found themselves at the edge of oblivion, engulfed in a vortex of darkness that threatened to consume them whole. The very fabric of reality seemed to tear as the Great Motark summoned all of its remaining power to destroy them. Sam knew that he had to act quickly. He reached out to the Sphinx and the Anunnakian mummy, and together they began to weave a spell of protection. The Sphinx's ancient wisdom and the mummy's otherworldly powers combined to create a shield of light that surrounded the group, protecting them from the Great Motark's vortex. The Great Motark roared in fury, but its attacks were deflected by the shield. Sam knew that this would not last forever. The Great Motark was too powerful, and the shield was slowly being overwhelmed. He turned to the warriors from Tartaria and said, "We need to buy more time. Can you distract the Great Motark for me?" The warriors nodded and charged into battle. They were outnumbered and outmatched, but they fought bravely, giving Sam the time he needed. Sam closed his eyes and concentrated. He focused on the quantum energy that coursed through the vortex, attempting to understand its secrets. He could feel the power of the Great Motark within it, but he also sensed something else, a glimmer of hope. Sam opened his eyes and took a deep breath. He knew what he had to do. He raised his sword and let out a battle cry. With a burst of quantum energy, he charged into the vortex, heading straight for the Great Motark. The Great Motark turned to face Sam, its tentacles flailing. Sam dodged and weaved, his sword flashing in the light. He struck at the Great Motark's tentacles, severing them one by one. The Great Motark roared in pain and anger. It knew that Sam was its only real threat. It lashed out with its remaining tentacles, but Sam was too quick. He danced around the creature, striking with precision and speed. Finally, Sam delivered the final blow. His sword pierced the Great Motark's heart, and the creature collapsed to the ground. The vortex of darkness began to fade away, and Sam found himself standing on solid ground once again. He looked around and saw that his allies were safe. The Great Motark was defeated. Sam sheathed his sword and took a deep breath. He had survived the battle, but he knew that the danger was not over. The Great Motark was gone, but there were other threats out there, other beings that lurked in the shadows waiting to strike. Sam turned to his allies and said, "We must remain vigilant. The universe is a dangerous place, but together we can face any challenge." The group of warriors nodded in agreement. They knew that Sam was right. The danger was not over, but they were stronger together. They would stand united against any threat, no matter how great.